The more I look at these people parade themselves all over the media and pretend to be some sort of political, military, global strategists and geniuses, is the more it makes me angry, because I know better. But I understand why they're doing it. They're doing it for fame. They're doing it because they've always been, is, and always will be boasters, mouthpieces, not men of guts, but men who talk. The question is, this gentleman parading himself all over the local media and pretending that this is the middle of the Cold War. Okay? And when it was actually the middle of the Cold War, and that gentleman himself had an opportunity to prove how much prowess he had in battle, guess what that gentleman did? He ran and hid like a little girl under his bed. He didn't even fire a shot in jest. And now he comes and pretends that he is some big honcho. You had your opportunity, sir. You had the opportunity in the middle of battle to prove your worth, but you didn't. Instead, many of you punks sent Grenadian young men and women in the thick of battle, and some of them lost their life, like Blondell Church, who laid down his life at Carifta Cottages and left his kids behind. Now these were valiant men, not you boasters, masqueraders, and cowards. And in some respects, opportunists and traitors to your country. We can speak about other valiant men who, under misguided leadership, faced the greatest army in the world, like Elton Thomas, who lived on Green Street and got cut down on Fort Rupert that morning. He got in a good 2.5 hours of fire, and then he was taken out, his head obliterated, and all this sacrifice for what? Left his daughter on Green Street. Thank goodness she was able to grow up into a healthy young woman and became a U.S. Army soldier. Now, luckily, she can serve in an army with dignity and integrity. You charlatans, boasters, masqueraders, and hypocrites do a disservice to these men who laid their life down in defense of their country. But here you are now. You people sit back and pretend that you are some big honchos. Notice, it is the ones that never say anything that are the ones with the guts. Like the lieutenant, there is a man of guts who stood up and valiantly tried to defend his country. The only problem is he was misguided and corrupted by a corrupt and self-serving leadership. If that gentleman had an opportunity to serve in a proper army, guess what? He would have had an illustrious career. He would have retired with dignity. But instead, he was misguided and gave his all and his youth to a corrupt and self-serving leadership. The same gentleman, that gentleman of guts, is the one that says nothing. He says nothing. And he was in the thick of it. When Bouchejou was overtaken, who it is that went and retook Bouchejou? Wasn't these big honchos? It was regular carnage militiamen, supported by one or two of the permanent battalion. These guys. Where were these guys? Hiding, biting their nails under their bed. And now they come to you, the Grenadian youth, to have you believe and make you feel that there are some prominent, great warriors. I am here to dispel that myth. And as for this lieutenant colonel who parades like he is some military genius, he is anything but. Ask him, why did he send the platoon into an ambush? I say all of this to say that if you were such a military genius, you would think you would have gathered battlefield intelligence or have a probing element before you ran straight into an ambush at the Foxen Mars Bishop Highway. How about that? So much for your military genius. And I am saying all of this because I don't want the Grenadian youth of today to be duped, to be bamboozled, to have you people come and masquerade as some sort of political and military geniuses. I want them to understand who you are. Had it not been on that fateful day for a certain gentleman from the Springs area who was able to turn around that Jeep in the middle of the road in the Foxen area and help save the point element, then they all would have been destroyed. But here you guys come now and pretending that you are some military geniuses. Who are you trying to fool? Again, notice the lieutenant doesn't say anything, and that is the man who had some military prowess. Did you guys go and put your asses on the line in Bushaju? No. Instead, what about all the young men who were misguided from the Grenada area who sacrificed their life on that day? Where were you? These young boys were barely 15, 16, and 17. And their parents was left alone, their brothers, their sisters, and their parents. And here you are, doing a disservice to their sacrifice. Here you are. What about the major? He doesn't say anything. He was the one who crawled around the entire building and wrecked the area, while you guys were in comfort hiding. So, don't fool Grenadian people. What about Buggies? He was there as reported. Where were you guys? Another valiant man whose name can't be mentioned because he has since passed. Where were you guys when a certain young man, well, I can now call his name because he has since passed, like Blackfoot, stood up by Benbach's home on the carnage with Kalashnikov in hand, firing at helicopters, which was dangerously dangerous? Where were you guys? What about another tourist street carnage man? These people's family and their sons and their daughters should be proud. The only sad thing is that they did it for a misguided leadership, a self-serving leadership, and a misguided voodoo philosophy. What about Preacher Man? I can mention his name because he has since passed. These men displayed exceptional valiance with primitive weapons as compared to their foes at the time. Guess what? They gave it their all. Now, in times of peace and in times of sensationalism, you guys come and parade yourselves as some big honchos. I will not let you deceive and bamboozle the Grenadian people and pretend that you are some exceptional model of valor and courage. You are anything but. Some of you weasels went and hide in the general hospitals pretending you have major wounds when you only had a little bit of cuts and bruises, and bandage it like if you had major wounds, huh? And left the young men, some of them with only 2 weeks of training, to stand up and face the greatest army in the world. And as much as time has changed and history has progressed, you see the same thing happening now. You had a bunch of people talking some big talk. And now that a little pressure has been applied, they're jumping off ship like rats on a burning ship. Yeah. So much for your cojones and all your big talk. Where are you now? And you all wanted to be like Morris? Here's your opportunity to be like Morris. Do you understand what strategy Morris pursued? Do you understand that what he said publicly and what he said behind closed doors was entirely different at times? Because that was the politically wise and strategic thing to do. He wasn't as politically dunce like the political fanatics around him who wanted him to pursue a hardline policy. And here it is in this modern times. They were egging you on to pursue a hardline policy, even when in a worse situation. Now you don't have the backing of an alternative superpower. But you guys are talking, oh, this one is rising, and that one is rising, and oh, this one is going down, like you guys are some big global political analysts. Well, why don't you call all your rising friends now to help you? Why don't you call them? But of course, they have more experience than you amateurs, so guess what? They are not going to rush to your aid, because they understand the situation more than you political amateurs understand. And there is precedence for this. Just like they didn't rush to your aid in 1983, it is even worse now. They definitely are not going to rush to your aid. But boo, you find yourselves all alone, cornered, and backed into a corner. Now let's get back and focus on these brilliant strategic thinkers, socialist Marxist remnants of the PRG. But, on October 19, you guys were some brilliant military strategists and tacticians, right? You were able to go and take over the fort and clear the masses. But when it came for you guys to show how brilliant your tactics and your military strategies are, some of you went and ran and hid. The bottom line is this: stop trying to deceive and bamboozle the Grenadian people. Ich würde Ehren Betrug mit aller Kraft aufdecken.